The Arizona desert holds its secrets close. Beneath a bone-white moon, the sand remembers every drop of blood it has ever tasted. Tonight it would taste more. Grace Coleman stood in the ruins of Copper Ridge, knife pressed against Catherine Voss's throat. Behind her, Lily's voice shattered the silence. "Mama, don't." Catherine looked up at Grace. No fear in her eyes, only exhaustion. "Do it. Kill me. I'm already dead inside." Grace's hand shook. The knife blade caught firelight. One thrust, that was all it would take. Justice for James, protection for Lily, an end to the nightmare. But Lily's voice cut through the rage. "Please, Mama, don't be like her!" Grace looked down at Catherine. Saw a woman broken by love twisted into obsession. Saw herself reflected there. What she could become if she let hate define her. She pulled the knife away, stood. Catherine lunged for a fallen pistol nearby. Grace moved without thinking, tackled her. They struggled in the dust. Then Catherine went still. Grace pulled back. Blood pooled beneath Catherine's body where she had struck her head against the rocks in their struggle. Catherine looked up at Malrich standing frozen nearby. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I loved you too much." Her eyes closed. Grace stood, blood on her hands, Lily crying behind her. And she understood that some sins are born from love twisted beyond recognition. In the terrible silence that followed, only one question remained. A question that would haunt every moment that came before this one, every choice that led three broken people to this crossroads of blood and dust. What sin could be so great that it destroyed an entire family? The answer lay 3 days in the past. In a small town that thought it knew Grace Coleman. In the secret she carried like stones in her pockets. In the moment everything she had built began to crumble. 72 hours earlier, Whispering Creek, Arizona territory drowsed in the kind of April heat that makes sensible people seek shade and fools seek fortune. The town clung to existence at the edge of nowhere, a collection of weathered buildings pressed against red rock mesas like a beggar against a church wall. 300 souls called it home. Most would die here. Some already had. Grace Coleman's wagon rolled down the rutted main street just after noon when the sun stood directly overhead and cast no shadows. A careful observer might have noted the timing. Grace Coleman was always careful. She sat straight-backed on the driver's bench, reins loose in scarred hands. Beside her, Lily pressed close despite the heat. The girl's eyes moved constantly, cataloging every doorway, every window, every face that turned to watch them pass. 10 years old, and already she understood that survival meant seeing danger before danger saw you. The wagon carried everything they owned. 2 trunks, a wooden case that Grace never let out of reach, bundles wrapped in oilcloth, the possessions of women accustomed to leaving quickly traveling light, starting over in places that asked few questions. Grace pulled the wagon to a halt outside a 2-story building with a hand-painted sign that read Thornton House Rooms and Board. The paint had faded to ghosts of letters. Like everything in Whispering Creek, it had survived through stubbornness rather than prosperity. Before Grace could climb down, the front door opened. A woman emerged, wiping flour-dusted hands on her apron. Mid-40s with kind eyes that had learned not to be too kind, not to ask questions that might drive away paying customers. "Help you, ma'am?" Grace studied the woman for 3 seconds longer than politeness required, cataloging, measuring, looking for the signs she had learned to recognize. A certain hardness around the eyes, a way of standing that suggested familiarity with trouble. The woman had neither. She simply looked tired. "I need a room, 2 beds, quiet." The woman's lips curved in something that might have been a smile in a different life. "Quiet's about all we have in abundance here. I'm Edith Thornton. This is my establishment. Grace Coleman. This is my daughter, Lily." Edith's gaze shifted to the girl. Lily met her eyes without flinching, without the shyness most children showed strangers. Another careful observer might have found that unusual. Edith Thornton was careful by necessity. "How long will you be staying, Mrs. Coleman?" Grace had answered this question in a dozen towns. The answer never changed. "I'm not sure yet. We're looking for a place to settle. Somewhere quiet." Running from something? The question came without judgment. In the territories, half the people were running from something. Debts, laws, memories. The other half were running towards something equally elusive. Second chances, fresh starts, peace. Grace's hand moved almost imperceptibly toward the fold of her dress where the Colt rested, then stopped. Edith Thornton had already noticed. A woman who ran a boarding house on the edge of civilization learned to notice everything. "Isn't everyone out here running from something, Mrs. Thornton?" Edith nodded slowly. "I suppose that's true enough. Come inside. I'll show you the room." As Grace lifted Lily down from the wagon, a man's voice called out from across the street, "Mrs. Thornton, new arrivals." Grace turned. The man who approached wore a sheriff's star pinned to his vest. 38, maybe 40. Tall, with the lean build of someone who had learned to move quietly and strike hard when necessary. His eyes were blue and careful. "Sheriff Nathan Reeve," Edith said by way of introduction. "This is Mrs. Grace Coleman and her daughter Lily." Nathan Reeve touched the brim of his hat. "Welcome to Whispering Creek, Mrs. Coleman." His gaze lingered on Grace's face a moment too long. "Hope you find what you're looking for here." Something in his voice made Grace's spine stiffen, recognition, suspicion. She could not tell, but she knew the weight of a man's attention when it carried purpose beyond politeness. "Thank you, Sheriff. I'm just looking for a quiet place to raise my daughter." "Well, we specialize in quiet." He smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "If you need anything, my office is just down the street. We take care of our own in Whispering Creek." The way he said "our own" suggested possession. Claim. Grace had heard that tone before in a dozen towns. Sheriffs marking territory. She nodded once noncommittal and followed Edith inside. The room on the second floor was small but clean. 2 narrow beds, a washstand, a window that overlooked the street. Grace went to the window, immediately tested the latch, measured the drop to the ground. 12 feet, survivable in an emergency. "I'll need to store our wagon somewhere secure," Grace said. "There's a stable out back." Edith paused in the doorway. "Mrs. Coleman, I don't pry into my guest's business, but I should tell you Sheriff Reeve is a good man, fair. If you're in some kind of trouble—" "We're not in trouble." The lie came smoothly. Grace had practiced it until it sounded like truth. "My husband died 3 years ago. I've been moving around trying to find the right place to settle. For Lily's sake." Edith's expression softened. Widow was a word that opened doors in the territories. Widows were safe, sympathetic, not threats. "I'm sorry for your loss. If you need anything at all, you just ask." She said, So after Edith left, Grace locked the door and tested it twice. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and allowed herself one full breath. One moment of letting the mask slip. Lily climbed onto the bed beside her. "Mama, are we staying?" Grace pulled her daughter close, felt the small body press against her side. Solid, real, the only thing in the world that mattered. "For a while, baby. We'll see how it feels." "The sheriff was looking at you funny." Grace's jaw tightened. 10 years old and already she saw too much. "I know. Do you think he knows?" "No one knows. No one can know." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then in a voice so small it's barely qualified as sound, she asked the question that haunted both of them. "Mama, what if the bad man finds us?" Grace tightened her arm around Lily's shoulders. "He won't." "But what if he does?" Grace looked down at her daughter, at the brown hair that fell in waves, at the dark eyes that saw too much and understood too little. At the face that carried features Grace tried not to examine too closely, tried not to compare to memories she had buried in the deepest part of herself. "Then I'll do what I've always done," Grace said. "I'll protect you." Even if it meant pulling the trigger with Lily watching. Even if it meant becoming the monster she had spent 11 years running from. Even if it meant proving that some sins could never be washed away, only passed on to the next generation. But she did not say that part out loud. That night Grace dreamed. She always dreamed. In the dream she was 25 again, young enough to believe the world made sense, old enough to know better. The Buffalo Bill Wild West show tent glowed like a cathedral in the Nebraska dusk. Inside 2,000 people pressed shoulder to shoulder, hungry for spectacle, for the myth of the West performed for their entertainment. They wanted to see Indians and cowboys, sharpshooters and trick riders, the frontier packaged and sanitized and sold for 50 cents admission. Grace stood in the shooting arena, Winchester rifle easy in her hands. She wore buckskin and fringe costume more than clothing. Her hair hung in a long braid down her back. The announcer's voice boomed across the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, the incredible Quicksilver Grace, fastest shot in 3 territories. Watch as she demonstrates skills that would make any army marksman weep with envy." The crowd roared. Grace raised the rifle. Someone threw 6 glass balls into the air. She tracked them with eyes that had learned to see the world in fractions of seconds. Breathe, aim, fire, breathe, aim, fire, 6 shots, 6 hits, glass rained down like snow. The crowd erupted. Grace bowed, professional smile fixed in place. She had done this show 100 times, would do it 100 more. As she turned to exit, a man stepped into her path. Tall, handsome in the way damaged things sometimes are. Scars on his hands, liquor on his breath, eyes that held too much war and not enough peace. "Hell of a show, His words slurred at the edges. "But I bet I can outshoot you any day, woman." The crowd noise faded. Grace recognized the type. Men who came to these shows not to be entertained but to prove something. To reclaim some piece of masculinity they felt the war had stolen. She had dealt with them before. "I'm sure you're very skilled, sir. But the show is over for tonight." He moved closer. The smell of whiskey intensified. "One shot. You and me, right now." The show manager appeared, trying to defuse. "Sir, please, Miss Grace is finished performing." The drunk man's face twisted. Scared, Grace should have walked away, should have let the manager handle it, should have recognized the danger in the man's eyes, the particular rage of someone looking for a reason to hurt. But she was 25 and tired and had spent the day being told to smile more, shoot prettier, be less threatening to the male performers. So instead of walking away, she said the words that would change everything. "Fine. 1 shot." They set up targets. 50 yards, small bottles. The drunk man shot first, missed by 3 inches. Tried again, missed by 2. Grace raised her rifle, breathed, fired. The bottle exploded. The crowd cheered. The drunk man's face went red, then white, then something worse than either. "Bet you can't do that twice, Dave." Grace put 3 more bottles on the stand, stepped back to 75 yards, fired 3 times in 5 seconds. 3 bottles shattered. "Maybe," she said, unable to resist twisting the knife, "you should practice more." The crowd laughed. Not kind laughter. The kind that cuts, that diminishes, that takes a man who already felt small and makes him smaller. She saw it in his eyes, the moment something broke. The instant humiliation curdled into something darker. "Bitch," he said and walked away. Grace thought that was the end of it. She was wrong. The dream shifted. Later that night, behind the tent, Grace walking back to her wagon in the dark. Footsteps behind her, turning too late. The drunk man and the 2 others. No words now, just hands. Just violence. Just the particular cruelty men visit upon women who make them feel weak. Grace fought. She had been trained by army instructors, had learned to handle herself. But 3 men in the dark were odds no amount of training could overcome. The scar on her shoulder, the one she told people came from a horse accident. It came from that night. From a knife. From trying to escape. What else came from that night she tried not to think about? Grace woke with her heart hammering. Sweat soaked the sheets. Across the room Lily slept undisturbed. Grace rose quietly, went to the window. 3 a.m. Whispering Creek lay silent under starlight. She put her hand against the glass. Cool, real, present tense. The past could not touch her here. Except it could. It always could. The past was not a place you left behind. It was a weight you carried. And someday, somewhere, the weight became too much. Grace returned to bed but did not sleep. Instead, she thought about the man in her dream, Maurich Voss. She had learned his name later. Learned he was a Confederate veteran. Learned he had demons the war had planted deep. Learned none of it mattered because knowing why a man hurt you did not undo the hurting. She had also learned that 9 months after that night she gave birth to a daughter. A daughter with dark eyes that did not come from Grace. Did not come from James Coleman, the good man who married her despite everything. Dark eyes that came from a drunk Confederate in a show tent in Nebraska. Grace looked at Lily sleeping. Innocent, beautiful. Unaware that her existence was born from violence. And she wondered not for the first time what kind of God made beauty from brutality. Morning came with dust and heat. Grace woke Lily early, dressed her carefully, and led her downstairs to breakfast. Edith served eggs and coffee without asking questions. 3 other boarders ate in silence. A prospector, a traveling preacher, a woman of indeterminate profession who met no one's eyes. After breakfast, Grace walked Lily through town, orienting, learning the layout, finding exits. Old habits from her time with the Army Civilian Contractor Program died hard. The schoolhouse stood at the edge of town, a single-room building with a covered porch. Grace watched children arrive, watched the teacher greet them, a woman in her 30s with gentle eyes and flower dust on her dress. "Thinking of enrolling your daughter." Grace turned. Sheriff Nathan Reeves stood 3 feet away. She had not heard him approach. Dangerous. She was getting soft. "Maybe. She needs stability." Nathan nodded. "Miss Clara Finch is a fine teacher. Lily would do well there." He paused. "Your daughter's a quiet one. Observant. She's had to grow up fast. Losing a father will do that." Another pause waited. "What was your husband's name, Mrs. Coleman?" Grace's pulse quickened. The question seemed casual. Was not. James Coleman." Nathan's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, but Grace caught it. "Did you know him, Sheriff? Coleman's a common name in the territories." Nathan's voice was carefully neutral. "What unit did he serve with?" "He was a captain. Logistics. Based out of Fort Apache, before we married." Nathan nodded slowly. "I'm sure he was a good man." He walked away before Grace could ask why his hands had clenched into fists. That afternoon, Grace took Lily to the general store for supplies. The shopkeeper, a balding man with nervous hands, had loaded flour and coffee and dried beans into her basket without conversation. As Grace paid, a woman entered, mid-40s, dressed in black despite the heat. Beautiful in a severe way, like winter frost on glass, she moved with purpose with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The woman's eyes swept the store, cataloging everything, and stopped on Grace. For 3 seconds they stared at each other. Grace felt ice run down her spine. This woman was dangerous. Every instinct screamed it. Then the moment passed. The woman nodded politely and moved to the counter to place her order. Grace took Lily's hand and left quickly. "Mama, who is that lady?" "I don't know, baby." But Grace's hand rested on the Colt hidden in her dress, and she made a mental note to find out exactly who the woman in black was and why her presence felt like a storm warning. That evening, Grace sought out the only person in Whispering Creek she thought she might trust. Dr. Howard Kemp maintained an office attached to his home at the quiet end of Main Street. Grace found him there, cleaning surgical instruments by lamplight. Doctor. Kemp, I'm Grace Coleman. Edith Thornton said you served in the Army. Kemp looked up. Recognition dawned immediately. Good Lord, Grace Sullivan. I thought you were dead. Grace stepped inside and closed the door. You can't tell anyone. I would never. Kemp set down his instruments. I served with you at Fort McDowell. You saved my life during that Apache raid. Different lifetime. And the girl Lily. His medical mind was already working. James Coleman's daughter. Grace's silence was answer enough. Kemp nodded slowly. Does anyone else know? No, and it needs to stay that way. You have my word. He studied her face. But Grace running forever isn't sustainable. Eventually the past catches up. I know. Grace moved toward the door. But I'll protect her as long as I can. As she left, Kemp called after her. Grace, if you ever need to help, truly need it, I'm here. You're not alone. But Grace Coleman had learned long ago that everyone was alone in the ways that mattered. 2 days passed quietly. Grace rented a small cabin at the edge of town. Simple, defensible. With clear sight lines and multiple exits. She began settling and establishing routines, making Lily's life as normal as possible. On the third day, Lily fell while climbing rocks near the cabin. Nothing serious. A scrape. But Grace, paranoid and protective, took her to Dr. Kemp to be certain. Kemp examined the wound, declared it minor, and began cleaning it. Just to be safe out there, he said. I'd like to do a blood test. Make sure there's no infection risk. Grace nodded. Standard procedure. Kemp pricked Lily's finger, prepared a slide, examined it under his microscope, then stopped, looked again. His expression shifted. Grace, could I speak with you privately? They moved to his office. Kemp closed the door. Lily's blood type is a B negative, extremely rare. So, Grace, you're O positive. I have your records from Fort McDowell. He paused, choosing words carefully. I don't know James Coleman's blood type, but I know biology. 2 O positive parents cannot produce an AB negative child. It's genetically impossible. Grace went very pale. Grace, who is Lily's biological father. Grace went very still. Kemp continued gently. Grace, it's biologically impossible for 2 O positive parents to produce an AB negative child. Who is Lily's father? The walls seemed to close in. Grace sat down heavily. Does it matter? Only if you're in danger, only if someone might come looking. Grace looked at the floor. Malrich Voss, Confederate veteran. I never told him. He doesn't know. Kemp's face went pale. Malrich Voss, Grace, he's wanted in 3 territories. He runs with a gang. If he ever found out he has a daughter... He won't. How can you be sure? Grace met his eyes. Because I'll kill him first. The certainty in her voice left no room for doubt. That night Grace could not sleep. She sat by Lily's bed watching her daughter breathe, wondering how much time they had left before the past arrived. She did not have to wonder long. The next afternoon 3 riders appeared at the edge of town. Grace saw them from the cabin window. Her blood turned to ice. She recognized him immediately. 11 years had carved lines into his face, added scars, stolen the youth. But the basic architecture remained. Malrich Voss. Beside him rode a younger man. Resemblance suggested brother. And bringing up the rear a 3rd rider. Hard-eyed, professional. Grace's hand found the Colt. Lily, she said, voice eerily calm, I need you to go to the cellar, now. Mama. Now, Lily, don't argue. Something in Grace's tone made Lily obey without question. She disappeared down the cellar stairs. Grace bolted the door behind her. Then she walked out onto the porch. Rifle in hand. Ready. The 3 riders stopped in front of the cabin. Malrich dismounted slowly. The limp was new, probably from the bullet Grace had put in him in Denver years ago when he tried to approach her at another show. He looked at her for a long moment. Then his gaze shifted to something behind her. Grace turned. Lily stood in the window. She had not stayed in the cellar. Time stopped. Malrich stared at the girl, at her dark eyes, at features that mirrored his own in ways that could not be denied. Grace watched him do the mathematics. 11 years, the right age, the unmistakable resemblance. When he spoke, his voice cracked. How old is she? Grace raised the rifle. Turn around and leave. Now. How old is she, Grace? She's none of your concern. Malrich took a step forward. I'm her father. You're nothing. You're the man who hurt me and ruined my life. I have a daughter. Wonder and horror mixed in his voice. My God, I have a daughter. Behind him, a woman's voice cut through the tension. The woman in black from the general store stepped out from behind the horses. Brother, she said to Malrich, we need to talk, now. Malrich did not move. He could not stop staring at Lily. Grace's finger moved to the trigger. Get off my property. Sheriff Nathan Reeve appeared running. What's going on here? The woman in black smiled, cold, calculating. Just a family reunion, Sheriff. Nothing to concern yourself with. Nathan looked between Grace and Malrich. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Mrs. Coleman, do you know these people? Grace's voice came out flat, dead. Yes. Lily pushed open the cabin door, stepped onto the porch. Mama, who is that man? Grace's heart shattered. Malrich took another step forward. Lily, is that your name? Don't you dare speak to her, Grace snarled. She's my daughter. She's my daughter. I'm her father by blood, and I'm her mother by choice. The words hung in the air between them. Truth and counter-truth. Biology and devotion. Violence and love. Lily looked from Grace to Malrich. Confusion and dawning comprehension warred on her young face. Mama! What is he talking about? Grace lowered the rifle. Not in surrender, in defeat. The moment she had dreaded for 10 years had arrived. The truth could not be hidden anymore. Lily, baby, come inside. We need to talk. But before Lily could move, Malrich spoke. Soft, broken, desperate. Please, just let me look at her, just for a moment. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know I had a child. Grace met his eyes. Saw genuine anguish there. Saw a man confronting the consequences of actions he barely remembered. Saw perhaps the faintest shadow of the person he had been before war, and whiskey broke him. You have 60 seconds, Grace said. Then you leave and never come back. Malrich moved closer. Stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, looked up at Lily. Hello, he said. My name is Malrich Voss. Lily studied him with her mother's careful eyes. Are you really my father? I think I am, yes. Mama says my father was James Coleman. James Coleman was a good man, better than me. He raised you. He loved you. That makes him your father in every way that matters. Then who are you? Malrich's voice broke. I'm the man who made a terrible mistake 11 years ago. I'm the reason your mama has scars. I'm everything she's been running from. And I'm sorry. God help me. I'm so sorry. Lily looked at Grace. Mama, is this true? Grace could barely speak. Yes, baby. Did he hurt you? Yes. Lily turned back to Malrich. Her young face hardened. Then you need to leave. The woman in black stepped forward. Lily, darling, I'm your Aunt Catherine. Your father and I just want to get to know you. I don't know you, and I don't want to. Catherine's expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered beneath. You will, in time. Nathan Reeve intervened. I think everyone needs to calm down. Mr. Voss. Miss Voss, you're upsetting these ladies. I'm going to have to ask you to move along. Malrich did not move. He could not stop looking at Lily, drinking in every detail, a drowning man seeing land. I'll go, he said finally. But Grace, we need to talk about Lily, about the future. There's nothing to talk about. She's my daughter, too. She's a child born from violence. You have no rights to her. I'm not the man I was. I've changed. Men like you don't change. Malrich flinched. But he did not argue. Instead, he looked at Lily one more time. Goodbye, Lily. I hope someday you'll let me explain. He mounted his horse. Catherine mounted hers, but her eyes never left Grace, a predator marking prey. As they rode away, Nathan turned to Grace. Mrs. Coleman, I think you better tell me everything. Grace pulled Lily close. Later. Right now, I need to talk to my daughter. Nathan nodded and left them alone. Grace and Lily stood on the porch holding each other, the truth between them now, the lie finally shattered. Mama, Lily's voice was so small. Is that man really my father? Grace knelt down to eye level. By blood, yes, but Lily, listen to me. James Coleman was your father. He chose you. He loved you. Blood doesn't make family. Love makes us family. Then why does it hurt so much? Grace pulled her daughter into her arms. Because the truth always hurts, baby. But we'll get through this, together. Lily clung to her. Are they going to take me away? No, never. I won't let that happen. Promise. Grace thought about the Colt under her pillow, about the rifle in the corner, about what she was willing to do to protect this child. About the moment, 72 hours in the future, when she would stand in the desert with a gun to Malrich Voss's head and Lily screaming behind her. I promise. That night, Grace sat in the dark watching the stars. In 3 days she would make good on that promise. In 3 days the past and present would collide with the force of thunder. In 3 days Grace Coleman would discover that some promises could only be kept with bullets. But tonight she held her daughter and pretended they were safe. Because lies are sometimes the kindest thing a mother can tell. And the desert patient and eternal waited for the blood it knew was coming. The night after Malrich Voss rode into Whispering Creek, Grace Coleman did not sleep. She sat in the rocking chair by Lily's bed, Colt revolver resting in her lap, and watched her daughter dream. Whatever innocence the girl had carried into this town had died the moment she saw her biological father's face. Grace knew the look, had seen it in mirrors for 11 years. The exact instant childhood ends and the long work of surviving begins. Outside, the desert wind carried dust against the cabin windows. A lonely sound, the kind that makes people remember they are small and the world is vast and indifferent. Tomorrow Grace would tell Lily everything. Every terrible truth she had buried. Every lie she had built their life upon. Every reason why a woman might stand in the desert with a gun to a man's head while her daughter begged her not to pull the trigger. But tonight she let Lily sleep. Let her have one more night of being 10 years old before the weight of 11 years of secrets crushed down upon her small shoulders. Grace closed her eyes. Not to sleep, to remember. She thought of James Coleman. Captain James Coleman, who had found her broken in an alley behind a show tent in Nebraska, who had looked at her torn dress and bruised face and the blood on her hands and asked only one question. Do you need help? Not what happened. Not who did this. Not the 1,000 questions that would have forced her to relive it. Just an offer. Simple, clean. The first kindness she had received in days. James had taken her to a doctor, paid for her care, asked nothing in return. And when she discovered 2 months later that she was pregnant, he had asked only one more question. Do you want to keep it? Grace had not known, had spent weeks unable to decide. How could she bring a child born from violence into the world? How could she look at it without seeing the face of the man who had hurt her? But then the baby moved. A flutter. A heartbeat separate from her own. And Grace understood that this child, whoever it became, was innocent of the circumstances of its creation. Yes, she had told James, I want to keep her. She did not know yet. It would be a girl, but somehow she knew. James had married her 1 week later. A quiet ceremony. No celebration. Just a promise. He would claim the child as his own. He would protect them both. He would ask no questions about that night in Nebraska or the man who had done it. And for 7 years, James Coleman had kept that promise. Grace opened her eyes. The memory hurt worse than the scar on her shoulder. Worse than the nightmares. Because James had been good. Genuinely wholly good. And the world had killed him for it. She knew now that Catherine Voss had orchestrated it. Had learned somehow about Grace's past. Had tracked them to St. Louis. Had arranged for James to be in the wrong place at exactly the right time for a knife to find his ribs. Grace had been performing that night. Another exhibition show. Quick money to keep them moving. She had come home to find James bleeding out on their floor, Lily crying beside him, and Catherine's calling card on the table. A simple note. Justice for family. Grace had understood then. Malrich had a sister who loved him enough to kill for the humiliation that Grace had caused him, who saw Grace as the architect of her brother's ruin, and had decided to balance the scales with blood. For 3 years, Grace and Lily had run, always one town ahead, always looking over their shoulders, until Whispering Creek. Until Grace had thought maybe finally they could stop. She had been wrong. Morning came with pale light and the sound of Lily stirring. Grace had not moved from the chair. Her body ached. Her eyes burned, but she was alert, ready. Mama? Lily's voice was small, uncertain. Did you sleep? No baby? Lily sat up. Lily sat down. Her hair so like Malrich's in color and texture fell around her face in tangles. Are you going to tell me now about him, about everything? Grace set the Colt aside, rose, sat on the edge of Lily's bed. Yes, but it's going to be hard to hear. I already know it's going to be bad. Lily's eyes, those dark eyes that did not come from Grace, met her mother's steadily. I'm not a baby anymore. I know you're not. Grace took a breath. But you're still my baby. And I need you to remember that no matter what I tell you I love you, that has never changed, will never change. Lily nodded, waiting. Grace began. She told Lily about the Buffalo Bill show, about the drunk Confederate who had challenged her, about the humiliation. She did not tell Lily the details of what came after. 10 years old was too young for those details. But she told her enough. That Malrich and his friends had hurt her. That Lily was born from that hurt. So he's a bad man, Lily said when Grace finished. No question. Statement of fact. He was. I don't know what he is now. But you said men like him don't change. I said that, yes. Do you believe it? Grace thought about Malrich's face when he saw Lily. The genuine shock, the wonder, the immediate sorrow. She thought about the way his voice broke when he apologized. I want to believe people can't change, Grace said slowly. Because if they can't, then I never have to forgive him. Never have to consider that maybe he's suffered too. Never have to see him as anything but the monster who hurt me. But I saw something in his eyes yesterday, something I didn't expect. Regret, real regret. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then, did you love James Coleman, my other father? Yes, very much. Even though you had me, even though I reminded you of what happened. Grace pulled Lily into her arms, held her tight. You have never not for one single second reminded me of that night. When I look at you, I see you. Only you, the best thing that ever happened to me. Lily's voice came muffled against Grace's shoulder. I wish James was my real father. He is your real father, baby, in every way that counts. Then what is Malrich? Grace had no answer for that. They sat together as morning light filled the cabin, mother and daughter, holding each other against the truth that threatened to tear them apart. Finally, Lily pulled back. Mama, I want to meet him. Really meet him. Not with guns and yelling. Just talk to him. Grace's first instinct was to refuse, to lock Lily in the cabin and never let Malrich Voss within 100 yards, but she saw the determination in her daughter's face, the need to understand where she came from. And Grace understood that denying Lily this would only make the questions grow larger. All right, Grace said, but I'll be there, and it happens somewhere public, with witnesses. Okay. And Lily, if at any point you want to leave, we leave. No arguments. I understand. Grace stood. I'll talk to Reverend Oakes. We'll arrange something for this afternoon. As Grace reached the door, Lily called out, Mama, do you think he really didn't know about me? Grace turned. I think if he had known, if he'd had any idea, he would have come sooner. For better or worse. Is that good or bad? I honestly don't know, baby. The church sat at the quiet end of Whispering Creek, a simple wooden structure with a cross that leaned slightly to the left. Reverend Samuel Oakes met Grace at the door, his weathered face kind but concerned. Mrs. Coleman, I heard about yesterday. News travels fast. Small town, big news. He gestured her inside. What can I do for you? Grace explained what she needed. A place for Lily to meet Malrich. Supervise. Safe. Oakes listened without judgment, a skill Grace appreciated more than she could express. I can arrange it, Oakes said when she finished. This afternoon. I'll send word to Mr. Voss at the boarding house. He's staying at Thornton House. He and his sister took rooms there yesterday. Edith wasn't pleased, but she doesn't turn away paying customers. Oakes studied Grace's face. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. This business with Mr. Voss, it's eating at you. Everything about him eats at me. Oakes was quiet for a moment. Then, Grace, can I speak plainly, please? I've counseled many people in my years. Soldiers coming home from war, widows, men who'd done terrible things and wanted forgiveness. And I've learned this. Hate is a weight we carry. It bends our backs, breaks our spirits. Sometimes the only way to survive is to put the weight down. You're telling me to forgive him. I'm telling you that forgiveness is for you, not for him. It's the difference between carrying poison and letting it go. Grace looked at the simple wooden cross above the altar. What if I can't? Then you can't. But Lily deserves to make her own choices about her father, even if those choices hurt you. Grace knew he was right. Hated that he was right. This afternoon, then, 2 o'clock, you'll be there. I'll be there, and Grace, I'll pray for you, for all of you. Pray it doesn't end with someone dead. Oakes's expression turned grave. That's exactly what I'll pray for. While Grace arranged the meeting, Malrich Voss sat in his room at Thornton House and stared at his hands. Scarred hands. Hands that had killed in war. Hands that had hurt an innocent woman. Hands that 11 years ago had created life without knowing it. A daughter. He had a daughter. The knowledge sat in his chest like a stone. Heavy. Undeniable. Transforming everything he thought he knew about himself. Catherine sat across from him, her face unreadable. You're being foolish, brother. I have a child, Catherine. You have a bastard born from a moment of drunken stupidity. That doesn't make you a father. Malrich flinched at her tone. Don't call her that. Why not? It's the truth. Catherine leaned forward. Grace Coleman destroyed you, Malrich. Made you a laughingstock. Made you question everything about yourself. And now she's using that child to manipulate you. She didn't know I'd come here. She's been running from me. Because she knows what she did. She knows she deserves what's coming. Malrich looked at his sister. Really looked at her. Saw the hardness in her eyes. The absolute certainty. The love that had curdled into something poisonous. What did we become, Catherine? What do you mean? When did we stop being people and start being this revenge, violence, running from law to law? He gestured at the room. Living in boarding houses under assumed names. Is this what Mama and Papa wanted for us? Catherine's face softened slightly. They wanted us to survive. We are surviving. Are we? Or are we just slowly dying in more places? Before Catherine could answer, a knock at the door interrupted them. Malrich opened it to find Reverend Oakes standing in the hallway. Mr. Voss, I have a message from Mrs. Coleman. Malrich's heart jumped. Yes, and she's agreed to let you meet with Lily this afternoon, 2 o'clock, at the church, supervised. I'll be there. Mr. Voss, I should tell you, Grace will be armed. Sheriff Reeve will be present. Any threatening behavior in the meeting ends immediately. I understand. And Reverend, thank you for giving me this chance. Oakes nodded. Don't waste it. After the Reverend left, Catherine stood. You're not seriously considering this. I'm going to meet my daughter. It's a trap. Maybe, but I'm going anyway. Catherine's eyes flashed. Then you're a fool. Grace Coleman will use that girl to destroy you, just like she did in Denver. Then let her. Mowrich met his sister's gaze. For the first time in 15 years, Catherine, I have a reason to be something other than what I've been. Maybe I'll fail. Probably I'll fail. But I have to try. Catherine stood silent for a long moment. Then she turned and left the room without another word. Mowrich sat on the bed and thought about what to say to a daughter who had every reason to hate him. 2 o'clock arrived with the weight of destiny. Grace and Lily walked to the church in silence. Lily's hand clasped tight in her mother's. Sheriff Nathan Reeve waited on the steps, his presence both reassuring and tense. Mrs. Coleman, Lily. Nathan tipped his hat. I'll be inside, back corner. Won't interfere unless needed. Thank you, Sheriff. Inside, Reverend Oakes stood near the altar. The church was empty except for the 4 of them and the weight of everything unsaid. At 2 o'clock exactly, the door opened. Mowrich Voss entered alone. He had changed clothes, washed, shaved. The effort was obvious. This mattered to him. He stopped just inside the door. Thank you for agreeing to this. Grace said nothing, simply moved to stand beside Lily, one hand resting on her daughter's shoulder. Mowrich approached slowly. Stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see Lily's face clearly, far enough to not be threatening. Hello, Lily? Lily studied him with the same careful assessment she gave everything. Hello? I'm not sure what to say. I've never done this before. Been a father? Been anything worth being? The honesty seemed to surprise Lily. She glanced up at Grace, who nodded slightly. Permission to speak freely. Mama told me what happened, what you did to her. Mowrich's face went pale. Then you know I have no right to be here. No right to ask anything of you. But you're here anyway. Because I need you to know something. I didn't know about you. If I had known, I would have... He stopped. I don't know what I would have done. I was a different person then. A worse person. Are you better now? The question hung in the air. Mowrich thought about it, really thought. I'm trying to be. That's all I can say. So... Lily stepped forward out from under Grace's protective hand. Grace tensed but did not stop her. Why did you hurt my mama? Mowrich knelt down, bringing himself to Lily's eye level. Because I was drunk, because I was angry, because the war broke something in me and I never learned how to fix it. None of those are excuses, they're just reasons, and reasons don't undo what happened. Do you still drink? No, I stopped. After I woke up that next morning and remembered pieces of what I'd done, I stopped. Mama says you're wanted by the law. I am. I've done bad things, hurt people, stolen. I'm not a good man, Lily. Then why should I want to know you? The question cut deeper than any bullet. Mowrich's eyes filled with tears he did not try to hide. You shouldn't. You should listen to your mama and stay as far from me as possible. But I'm asking anyway, because you're my daughter. And even though I don't deserve it, I want to try to be your father. Lily looked back at Grace. Mama, what do I do? Grace knelt beside her daughter. That's your choice, baby, not mine. I can't make it for you. But what do you think? Grace looked at Mowrich. Saw a broken man trying to piece himself back together. Saw genuine remorse. Saw something she had never expected to see. Hope. I think, Grace said slowly, that your father was James Coleman. He earned that title. Mowrich is something else. What he becomes is up to him. And up to you. Lily turned back to Mowrich. I'm not calling you father, not yet, maybe not ever. I understand. But I have questions. About where you come from, about your family, about who I am. I'll answer anything you want to know. And you have to promise to never hurt my mama again. I promise. And if you break that promise, I'll hate you forever. Mowrich's voice broke. That's fair? Lily extended her hand. Adult gesture. Formal. Then we can try. Just try. Mowrich took her hand, shook it gently, and for just a moment Grace saw something impossible. The beginning of connection between two people who should have been strangers but were bound by blood neither of them had chosen. The meeting lasted an hour. Mowrich told Lily about his childhood, about Catherine raising him after their parents died, about the farm they had lost to debt, about joining the Confederate Army at 16, about coming home to nothing. He did not sugarcoat, did not make excuses, just told the truth as plainly as he could. Lily listened, asked questions, and Grace saw her daughter trying to understand how a person could be both victim and villain. how life could break people in ways that made them break others. When the hour ended, Lily said goodbye and went outside with Reverend Oakes to feed the church chickens, leaving Grace and Malrich alone for the first time since Nebraska. The silence between them was vast. Finally, Malrich spoke. "Thank you for letting me meet her." "I didn't do it for you." "I know. If you hurt her, Malrich, if you do anything to make her feel unsafe, I will kill you. No warning, no second chance. Do you understand?" "Yes." Grace stood. "She deserves better than either of us, better than a mother with nightmares and a father with blood on his hands, but she's stuck with us, so we do better. We be better. For her." "Agreed." As Grace moved toward the door, Malrich called out, "Grace, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." Grace stopped, did not turn. "Sorry doesn't give me back what you took, doesn't erase the scars, doesn't undo Lily being born from violence, but it's a start." She left him there alone in the church with his apologies and his regrets and the weight of 11 years finally settling on his shoulders where it belonged. Outside, she found Lily throwing corn to chickens, laughing as they scrambled over each other, a child being a child. Grace's heart ached with love and fear in equal measure. Sheriff Nathan approached. "That went better than I expected. It's not over. You think he's going to cause trouble?" "I think his sister is." As if summoned by the words, Catherine Voss appeared at the edge of the church property. She watched Lily with an expression Grace recognized. Possession, planning, danger. Their eyes met. Catherine smiled, cold, promising. Then she turned and walked away. "Nathan," Grace said quietly, "I need you to do something for me." "Name it. If something happens to me, if Catherine or anyone else tries to take Lily, I need you to protect her. Get her out of town. There's a letter in my cabin, under the floorboard beneath my bed. It explains everything." Nathan's face went grave. "Grace, what are you planning?" "Nothing, yet. But I've learned to prepare for worst outcomes." "You think Catherine's going to make a move?" "I know she is. The only question is when." Grace did not have to wait long for her answer. 2 days passed. Grace allowed Malrich supervised visits with Lily. Brief, public, building trust slowly. On the third morning, Lily did not come down for breakfast. Grace found her bed empty, window open, and on the pillow a note in elegant handwriting. "The child is with family now. If you want her back, bring Malrich to Copper Ridge at sunset. Come alone, or she dies. Catherine." Grace's vision went white, then red, then cold and clear and absolutely lethal. She found Malrich in the street preparing to ride out. He took one look at her face and knew. What happened? Grace handed him the note. Malrich read it, went pale. "No, Catherine wouldn't—" "She took my daughter. Grace, I swear I didn't know she was planning this." "I believe you. Doesn't matter. We're getting Lily back." "She said come alone." "She also said bring you. Catherine's playing a game. She wants us both there. Wants to see me choose between killing you and saving Lily." Malrich crumpled the note in his fist. "Then we don't give her the choice. We get Lily out before sunset." You think I'm going to let my sister hurt my daughter, Grace? I may be a lot of things, but I'm not going to stand by while Catherine destroys the only good thing I've ever had any part in creating." Grace studied his face, saw absolute determination, saw a man making a choice, choosing his daughter over his sister, choosing right over blood. "There's a problem," Grace said. "I don't know where Copper Ridge is." "I do," the voice came from behind them. Edith Thornton stood in the doorway of her boarding house. "And I'm coming with you." "Mrs. Thornton, this isn't your fight." Edith's face was set like stone. "Yes, it is. Because Catherine Voss isn't just Malrich's sister. She's my enemy, and it's time I told you why." They gathered in Edith's sitting room. Sheriff Nathan joined them along with Dr. Kemp and Reverend Oakes, an unlikely alliance united by a single purpose. Save Lily. Edith poured whiskey for everyone, drank hers in one swallow, then looked at Malrich. "Hello, husband." The word fell like an anvil. Malrich's face went white. "Edith, my God, I thought you were dead." "You were meant to. I changed my name, disappeared. Spent 8 years building a life where you couldn't find me." Her voice hardened. "Where the man you became couldn't hurt me anymore." "I never hurt you. Not with your hands, but you hurt me, Malrich. Every day. Watching you drink yourself into violence. Watching the war poison you. I begged you to stop, to get help, to try to be the man I married, and you chose the bottle instead." Malrich sat down heavily. "I didn't know you were here." "I know. When you rode into town yesterday, I almost ran again, but then I saw the way you looked at that little girl, and I saw something I hadn't seen in 15 years. The man you used to be." Grace interrupted. "This is all very touching, but my daughter is being held by a woman who has already killed once. We can process your marriage later. Right now, I need to know everything about Catherine." Edith turned to Grace. "Catherine raised Malrich after their parents died. She was 14. He was 8. She gave up everything for him. Saw herself as his protector, his savior." "She's obsessed with him," Malrich said quietly. I always knew it, but I thought it was just sisterly devotion. It's pathological, Edith confirmed. When you and I married, she saw me as stealing you, made my life hell until I left. And when Grace humiliated you in Denver, Catherine took it as a personal attack. She's been hunting Grace ever since. Grace's hands clenched into fists. She killed James. Probably. Catherine has connections, people who owe her favors. She would see it as balancing scales. And now she has Lily. Edith nodded. She'll use Lily as leverage, force you to make an impossible choice. Kill Malrich or lose your daughter. Then we make sure she doesn't get that chance, Nathan said. Copper Ridge is 20 miles northeast, abandoned mining camp. Good defensive position. She'll have men with her, Malrich added. Catherine never travels without hired guns. How many? 4, maybe 5. Good men, professionals. Grace stood. Then we need to be better. Nathan, can you deputize anyone? I can. How many do you need? Everyone who can shoot. This isn't just about Lily anymore. Catherine Voss is a threat to this entire town. We end this today. For the next 4 hours, Whispering Creek transformed. Men who had been shopkeepers and farmers became soldiers. Grace drilled them, taught them basics, positions, firing lines, discipline under fire. March worked beside her. His knowledge of tactics, his understanding of how Catherine thought, proved invaluable. And Grace found herself trusting him. Not forgiving, not forgetting, but trusting in this moment for this purpose. As sunset approached, they rode out, 15 strong. Grace and Malrich at the front, Nathan and Edith beside them, Dr. Kemp with his medical bag, Reverend Oakes armed with a rifle he swore he still knew how to use. The desert stretched before them, beautiful and brutal. The sky bled red and gold. Copper Ridge rose in the distance, dark against the dying light. Grace checked her Colt for the 100th time. Malrich rode beside her in silence. Finally he spoke. If this goes wrong, if Catherine kills me, promise me you'll tell Lily I tried. It's not going wrong. But if it does... Grace looked at him. I'll tell her you chose her over your sister, that in the end you were her father. Thank you. They rode on. The sun sank lower. And ahead at Copper Ridge, Catherine Voss waited with a little girl and a plan that would force everyone to choose between blood and righteousness. The battle that would define them all was only minutes away. And in the fading light, Grace Coleman thought about the woman she had been, the woman she had become, and the woman she would need to be to save her daughter. She thought about James Coleman, who had taught her that family was choice. She thought about Lily, who deserved better than any of them. And she thought about the gun in her hand and whether when the moment came she would be able to pull the trigger with her daughter watching. The desert held its breath, and the sun, uncaring, sank below the horizon. Copper Ridge rose from the desert floor like broken teeth. Once it had been a mining camp, a place where men gambled their lives against the promise of silver hidden in stone. Now it was nothing but ruins. Collapsed shafts, skeletal buildings, the bones of ambition picked clean by wind and time. Catherine Voss had chosen her ground well. Grace Coleman dismounted a quarter-mile out, signaling the others to do the same. 15 riders, 15 lives she was responsible for. The weight of it pressed against her chest like a stone. Malrich moved beside her, studying the ridge through a battered spyglass. She'll have men on the high points, rifles, good sight lines down into the camp. How many? 4, maybe 5, plus Catherine herself. Nathan Reeve crouched beside them, sketching in the dust with a stick. If we come straight in, they'll pick us off before we get close. We don't come straight in. Grace pointed to the left side of the ridge. There's a wash that runs along the base, deep enough for cover. We split into 3 groups. 1 creates a distraction from the front, 2 and 3 flank from the sides. And if they have Lily in the middle of camp... Edith's voice was tight. If they use her as a shield... Grace met her eyes. Then we get creative. Malrich lowered the spyglass. Catherine wants me. If I go in alone, draw her attention, the rest of you can move into position. That's suicide, Nathan said. Maybe, but it keeps Lily safe. Grace grabbed Malrich's arm. You're not going in alone. Catherine wants both of us. She wants me to kill you in front of Lily. That's the whole point. Then what do you suggest, Shoal? Grace thought about the cold open. The moment 72 hours from now, when she would stand with a gun to Malrich's head and Lily screaming. She thought about how they arrived at that moment, and she understood with terrible clarity what had to happen. We give Catherine exactly what she wants. We walk in, together, unarmed. Grace, no, Nathan started. It's the only way to get close to Lily without risking crossfire. Catherine won't kill us immediately. She'll want to talk, to gloat, to make it hurt. That gives you time to get into position. Malrich nodded slowly. It could work. It's insane, Edith said. It's the only play we have. Grace looked at each of them. Nathan, you take the east wash. Edith, you know Catherine's patterns. You take west. Reverend Dr. Kemp, you're with Nathan. Wait for my signal. What's the signal? Nathan asked. You'll know it when you see it. Dennis Bezos and Grace and Malrich walked toward Copper Ridge as the last light bled from the sky. They carried no weapons. Their hands were raised, a gesture of surrender that tasted like ash. Grace's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to run, to protect herself. But ahead somewhere in those ruins Lily waited, and Grace would walk through hell itself unarmed if it meant getting her daughter back. Grace, Malrich said quietly, if this goes bad, if I don't make it out, tell Lily I'm sorry I wasn't better sooner. Tell her yourself. I'm serious. If Catherine kills me, promise me you won't let Lily think I died not caring. Grace glanced at him, saw genuine fear, not for himself, for the legacy he would leave. I promise. They reached the edge of the camp. Firelight flickered between collapsed buildings. Shadows moved. Men with rifles, professional, alert. That's far enough. The voice came from above. A man on the roof of the only intact structure. Drop to your knees, hands behind your heads. Grace and Malrich obeyed. The gravel bit into Grace's knees. She forced herself to breathe. Slow, steady, fear was the enemy now. Footsteps approached. Catherine Voss emerged from the building, Lily walking beside her. Catherine's hand rested on the girl's shoulder, possessive, claiming. Lily's eyes went wide. Mama, I'm here, baby. Everything's going to be okay. Catherine smiled. Cold. Beautiful. Terrible. How touching. Mother and daughter reunited, and Malrich, my dear brother, so good of you to join us. Let Lily go, Catherine. Whatever you want, it's between us. She's innocent. Innocent. Catherine laughed. She's the living proof of Grace's crime against our family. She's the reason you've been broken for 11 years. I was already broken, Malrich said. The war did that. Grace just held up a mirror. Catherine's expression flickered, pain beneath the ice. Don't defend her, after everything she did to you. What did she do? Catherine outshoot me, embarrass me. I was drunk. I challenged her. What happened was my fault. What happened after was your fault, too. Grace's voice cut across the camp. You and your friends. In the dark. Or have you forgotten that part? Malrich flinched but did not look away. I haven't forgotten. I'll carry it until I die. Catherine's hand tightened on Lily's shoulder. The girl winced. Grace saw it, and rage exploded behind her eyes. Red, absolute, murderous. Let her go, Catherine. Now. Or watch you're unarmed, on your knees at my mercy. There is no mercy in you. There's only sickness, obsession. You've spent your whole life protecting Malrich from consequences, making excuses, punishing anyone who dared challenge him. You killed James Coleman, a good man, a father, and for what pride? Catherine's face twisted. He took you from us. He hid this child. He stole what was rightfully ours. Lily isn't property. She's a person. She has the right to choose her own family. She's blood. She's a Voss. She's a Coleman. Grace surged to her feet. 2 rifles immediately trained on her. She ignored them. She's my daughter. I carried her. I raised her. I protected her. You have no claim to her. She has Malrich's eyes, his blood that gives us every claim. Then ask her. Grace pointed at Lily. Ask her who she chooses. Blood or love? You or me? The camp went silent. Catherine looked down at Lily. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. Lily, darling, tell them. Tell them you want to stay with family. Lily looked up at Catherine, then at Malrich, then at Grace. Her young face was tear-stained but composed. When she spoke, her voice did not waver. I want my mama. Catherine's hand dropped from Lily's shoulder as if burned. What? Grace is my mama. She's always been my mama. I don't know you, and I don't want to. But we're your real family. No, Lily shook her head. Real family doesn't take you at gunpoint. Real family doesn't make you scared. Malrich's voice was rough with emotion. Let her go to Grace Catherine. Please. This has to end. Catherine's composure shattered. Tears streaked down her face. I did everything for you. Everything I raised you. I protected you. I gave up my entire life. I know, and I'm grateful, but Catherine, this is wrong. Lily deserves to choose. And she's chosen Grace. After everything Grace did to you. After everything I did to Grace. Malrich stood slowly. No one shot him. I was the one who hurt her, Catherine. I was the monster, not her, me, and spending 11 years pretending otherwise hasn't changed that truth. Catherine pulled a pistol from her dress, aimed it at Grace. Then I'll finish what should have been finished in St. Louis. The shot rang out, but it did not come from Catherine's gun. Edith Thornton stood at the edge of Camp Rifle smoking. Catherine's pistol spun from her hand, shattered by the bullet. Catherine screamed, clutching her hand. That's enough, Catherine! Edith's voice carried across the ruins. It's over! Chaos erupted. Catherine's men turned toward Edith. Nathan and his group emerged from the East Wash rifles ready. Reverend Oakes, Dr. Kemp, townspeople Grace had trained that afternoon. All converging. But Catherine was not finished. She lunged for Lily, grabbing the girl as a shield. A knife appeared in her uninjured hand, pressed against Lily's throat. "Stay back, all of you, or I'll kill her!" Grace's world narrowed to a single point. The knife, Lily's neck, the distance between them, 20 feet. Too far to rush, close enough to see the terror in her daughter's eyes. "Catherine, please." Malrich's voice broke. "Don't do this. She's just a child. She's the reason for everything. If she had never been born, you would still be whole." "I was never whole. The war saw to that. But Catherine, listen to me. Lily is innocent. She didn't ask to be born, didn't ask for any of this. If you have to hurt someone, hurt me. But let her go." "Why should I?" "Because I'm asking. Because I'm your brother. Because somewhere under all this rage you still love me. And if you love me, you won't make me watch my daughter die." Catherine's hand trembled. The knife pressed harder against Lily's throat. A thin line of red appeared. Grace moved without thinking. Pure instinct. Pure desperate love. She threw herself forward, covering the 20 feet in heartbeats. Catherine turned knife-slashing. Grace felt the blade bite into her shoulder. Did not care. She crashed into Catherine, both of them going down in a tangle of limbs. Lily scrambled away. Malrich caught her, pulled her behind him, shielding her with his body. Grace and Catherine rolled in the dust, fighting for the knife. Grace's shoulders screamed. Blood slicked her hands. But she had trained for this. Years in the Army civilian program. Hand-to-hand combat. Knife fighting. Survival. She got her hand around Catherine's wrist. Twisted. Felt bones grind. Catherine shrieked and the knife fell free. Grace pinned her, grabbed the knife, pressed it against Catherine's throat. Time stopped. Catherine looked up at Grace. No fear in her eyes. Only exhaustion. "Do it! Kill me! I'm already dead inside!" Grace's hand shook. The knife blade caught firelight. One thrust, that was all it would take. Justice for James, protection for Lily, an end to the nightmare. But Lily's voice cut through the rage. "Mama, don't!" Grace looked over. Lily stood there safe in Malrich's arms, watching. Those dark eyes that had seen too much, that would remember this moment forever. "Please, Mama, don't be like her." Grace looked down at Catherine. Saw a woman broken by love twisted into obsession. Saw herself reflected there. What she could become if she let hate define her. She pulled the knife away. Stood. "Someone tie her up!" Nathan moved forward with rope. As he secured Catherine's hands, the woman began to sob. Not rage anymore, just grief. The kind that comes when everything you built your life around crumbles. "I loved him," Catherine whispered. "I gave everything, and it still wasn't enough." Edith knelt beside her. "I know. I did the same. Loved him past reason, past sanity. But Catherine loving someone doesn't mean owning them. It doesn't mean destroying everyone who challenges them. What do I have now without him? A chance to be something other than his shadow." Catherine looked at Malrich. "You were really choosing them over me." Malrich knelt beside his sister, took her bound hands in his. "I'm choosing to be better. For Lily. Maybe for myself. Catherine, you saved me when Mama and Papa died. I'll never forget that. But you can't save me from who I am. Only I can do that. So this is goodbye. This is me setting you free, and hoping someday you'll forgive me for not being what you needed me to be." Catherine closed her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "I'm tired, Mal. So tired." Before anyone could react, she jerked her head sideways with terrible force, slammed her temple against the sharp edge of a protruding rock. The crack echoed across the camp. Once, hard, precise. "Catherine!" Malrich lunged for her, but too late. She collapsed. Blood spread beneath her head, dark against the dust. Dr. Kemp rushed forward, pressed bandages against the wounds, but the cuts were deep, precise. Catherine Voss had made her choice. She looked up at Malrich one last time. "Be better than me, brother. Be the father that little girl deserves. Catherine, please. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I was sick. Tell her love can poison if you're not careful." Her eyes closed. Dr. Kemp worked frantically, but some wounds cannot be bandaged. Some losses cannot be prevented. Catherine Voss died as the last light left the sky, cradled in her brother's arms, whispering his name. The silence that followed was broken only by Malrich's sobs. Grace stood apart, Lily pressed against her side, and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, only the hollow ache of witnessing a tragedy that had been building for years. Edith placed a hand on Malrich's shoulder. "I'm sorry." Malrich did not look up, could not speak. Nathan organized the men. Catherine's hired guns had fled during the chaos. The camp was secure. They would camp here tonight and return to Whispering Creek in the morning. Grace led Lily away from the body, found a quiet corner of ruins, checked her daughter for injuries. The cut on Lily's neck was superficial. The wound in Grace's shoulder was deeper, but not fatal. "Mama, you're bleeding." "I'm okay, baby. You saved me. I'll always save you, always." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Then is Aunt Catherine really dead?" "Yes." because of me. Grace grabbed Lily's shoulders, forced her to meet her eyes. No, not because of you, because she was sick, because she loved Malrich in a way that became toxic. This is not your fault. Do you understand me? But if I hadn't been born, then I wouldn't have the most important thing in my life. Lily, you are not a mistake. You are not a consequence. You are my daughter, my choice, my love. Catherine's death is tragic. But it is not your burden to carry. Lily collapsed into Grace's arms. They held each other while the desert night deepened around them and the stars emerged cold and indifferent above. In the morning they buried Catherine Voss in the desert she had died in. Malrich dug the grave himself. Edith stood beside him, silent support for a man she had once loved and might love still. Grace and Lily watched from a distance. Lily held a handful of desert flowers, the tiny yellow blooms that somehow grew in impossible places. When Malrich finished, Lily walked forward, placed the flowers on the grave. "I'm sorry you hurt so much," she said to the disturbed earth. "I hope you're not hurting anymore." Malrich looked at his daughter with wonder and grief mixed equally. "Thank you, Lily. That's kinder than she deserved." "Mama says everyone deserves kindness, and even people who do bad things. Your mama is a better person than me." They rode back to Whispering Creek in silence. The townspeople returned to their normal lives. The crisis had passed. Life continued. But for Grace, Malrich, and Lily, nothing would ever be normal again. 3 days later, a federal marshal arrived in Whispering Creek. Marshal Thomas Garrett. Gray-haired, weathered, carrying warrants from 3 territories, he found Malrich at the boarding house and arrested him without drama. Lily watched from the doorway as they put Malrich in irons. "Where are they taking him?" Grace pulled her close. "To trial. He has to face justice for things he's done." "Will they hang him?" "I don't know, baby." Lily pulled away from Grace, ran to Malrich. "Don't let them kill you, please." Malrich knelt awkwardly in the irons. "I'll try not to. But Lily, if they do, I need you to know something. Meeting you is the best thing that ever happened to me. You made me want to be better. That matters, even if I don't get the chance." "You'll get the chance. Mama will help you, won't you, Mama?" Grace looked at Malrich, at the man who had hurt her, who had created Lily, who had in the end chosen his daughter over his sister, over his own safety. "I'll testify," Grace said. "I'll tell them what happened at Copper Ridge, how you protected Lily, how you're trying to change." "Grace, you don't have to. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for her. She deserves to know her father, even if you're in prison." Marshal Garrett allowed them 1 more minute. Then he led Malrich away. Lily watched until he disappeared around the corner, tears streaming silently down her face. The trial was held in Tucson, 3 weeks later. Grace and Lily traveled there along with Nathan and Edith. A grim pilgrimage. The courtroom was packed. Malrich faced charges across 3 territories: robbery, assault, accessory to murder. The prosecution wanted death. Grace testified for 2 days. She told the truth, all of it, what Malrich had done to her, what he had become, but also what he had done at Copper Ridge, how he had chosen Lily, how he had asked his sister to spare the child's life. "Do you forgive him, Mrs. Coleman?" the prosecutor asked. Grace thought about it, really thought. "No, I don't forgive him. I may never forgive him. But I believe people can change. I believe he's trying. And I believe my daughter deserves a chance to know her father. Even though he's a criminal? Even though." The judge deliberated for 3 hours. When he returned, the courtroom held its breath. "Malrich Voss, you have committed serious crimes, the penalty for which could be death. However, taking into account your actions at Copper Ridge, your cooperation with authorities, and the testimony of Mrs. Coleman, I am sentencing you to 20 years hard labor at Yuma Territorial Prison. You will be eligible for parole in 12 years if you demonstrate good behavior." 20 years. Malrich would be 67 when he was released, if he survived. Yuma was brutal. Men died there. But it was not death. It was a chance. After the sentencing, Marshal Garrett allowed Malrich 5 minutes with Lily. They sat on a bench outside the courthouse. Father and daughter, strangers bound by blood trying to become something more. "I'm going to be gone a long time," Malrich said. "I know, you'll be grown when I get out, if I get out." "I'll wait." "Lily, no, don't waste your life waiting for me. Live. Be happy. Forget about me if you need to. "I won't forget." Lily looked up at him. "Will you write to me from prison?" "If you want me to." "I want you to. And I'll write back, and when I'm older I'll visit, if Mama says it's okay." Malrich looked at Grace, who stood nearby. She nodded slowly. Permission granted. "Then yes," Malrich said. "I'll write. I'll tell you about my days, about what I'm learning, about how I'm trying to be better." "Good." Lily threw her arms around him. Malrich froze, then slowly hugged her back. Tears ran down his weathered face. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me a reason to survive this." They led him away. Lily waved until he disappeared into the prison wagon. Then she turned to Grace. Can we go home now? Yes, baby, we can go home. 6 months passed. Whispering Creek healed, slowly, carefully. Scars formed where wounds had been. Grace was appointed official security consultant. She trained townspeople, established defenses, made the settlement safer. Nathan remained sheriff. He and Grace developed a friendship built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Sometimes late at night, Grace wondered if it could become something more. But James's memory was still too fresh, the pain still too real. Edith continued running the boarding house. She and Grace became close. Two women who had loved broken men and survived to tell the tale. And Lily adjusted. She attended school, made friends, lived the childhood Grace had always wanted for her. But once a week, Lily sat down and wrote a letter to Yuma Territorial Prison, and once a month a letter came back. Malrich's letters were simple, brief. He told Lily about prison routine, about the books he was learning to read better, about the skills he was developing, carpentry, leatherwork, anything to pass the time. But mostly he wrote about how thinking of her kept him going. Dear Lily, the desert here is brutal. Men die from heat or violence or simply giving up. But when I'm tempted to give up, I think about you. About your face when you placed flowers on Catherine's grave. About your kindness. And I find the strength to survive another day. You saved me, Lily. Not by forgiving me, but by giving me something to be better for. I love you, your father, Malrich. Lily kept every letter. In a box under her bed. Proof that people could change. That even the worst sins could be followed by redemption if a person was willing to do the work. 1 year after Copper Ridge, Grace and Lily sat on their porch watching the sunset. The cabin had been expanded, improved. It was truly home now. Mama, Lily's voice was thoughtful. Do you think people can really change, or do they just learn to hide what they are? Grace considered the question. I think people can change if they want to badly enough. If they have a reason. Malrich wanted to change because of you. And you changed. Yes, I used to think I was running from my past, but I was really running from myself, from accepting what happened and moving forward. Now I'm choosing to stay, to build, to live instead of just survive. I'm glad we stayed. Me too, baby. Nathan rode up the path. He dismounted, tipped his hat. Evening, ladies. Sheriff. Grace smiled. What brings you out here? Official business. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Letter came for you, from Yuma Prison. Grace's heart jumped. She took the letter, opened it. Inside was a note from Malrich, different from his usual letters to Lily. This one was addressed to Grace. Dear Grace, I'm writing to thank you for letting Lily write me, for testifying at my trial, for choosing mercy when you had every right to choose vengeance. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, I'm not asking for it, but I want you to know that I'm using every day here to become the man I should have been. The father Lily deserves. The person who honors rather than destroys. I'll never undo what I did to you, but I can make sure I never do it to anyone else. That's my promise. Not to you, to myself. Thank you for giving me Lily. Thank you for raising her right. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. It's not in fists or guns. It's in choosing love when hate would be easier. You are remarkable. I'm sorry I couldn't see that 11 years ago. Respectfully, Malrich Voss. Grace folded the letter, looked out at the desert turning gold in the dying light. What does it say, Mama? It says your father is trying, really trying. Do you believe him? Grace thought about Catherine, about James, about the long road from Nebraska to Whispering Creek, about all the ways violence rippled through lives touching people who never asked to be touched. I believe that trying is all any of us can do. She looked at Nathan, at Lily, at the home they had built from ashes and hope. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, trying is enough. 5 years later, Grace Coleman stood at the Yuma prison gates. Lily, 15 now and nearly grown, stood beside her. They were not there for release. Malrich had 7 more years to serve. But the prison allowed visitors, and Lily had asked. Malrich walked into the visiting room, thinner, grayer, but his eyes were clear, sober, focused. He looked at Lily and his face transformed. My God, you're so tall! I grew, Lily smiled. Mama says I get my height from you. Maybe. Your strength is all hers, though. They sat, talked for an hour. Malrich told Lily about his work in the prison carpentry shop, about the tables he made, the chairs, the hope that when he was released he might make an honest living. Lily told him about school, about learning to shoot like Grace, about her dreams of becoming a teacher. Grace watched them, saw connection growing, tentative, fragile, but real. As the visit ended, Malrich looked at Grace. Thank you for bringing her. She wanted to come. I won't stop her from knowing you, but Malrich, if you ever hurt her... I won't. I swear on everything I am, I won't. Grace nodded. Believed him. Not because he deserved trust, but because Lily deserved a father who was trying. They walked out into the Arizona sun. Lily turned back once, waved. Malrich waved back from behind the wire. Mama, do you think he'll make it the full 20 years? I think he'll make it because you're waiting. That's powerful medicine. They rode home to Whispering Creek, to the life they had built, to the future stretching ahead, and in Yuma prison Malrich Voss returned to his cell, pulled out a piece of paper, began writing another letter to his daughter. Dear Lily, seeing you today reminded me why I'm doing this, why I get up every morning, why I refuse to let this place break me. You are my North Star, my reminder that even from the worst moments something good can grow. I may have given you life, but you gave me purpose, and for that I am grateful beyond words. Stay strong, stay kind, and know that your father, flawed as he is, loves you more than breath. Until next time, Malrich. He sealed the letter. Tomorrow it would be mailed. Tomorrow Lily would read it and know that blood and choice could coexist, that a father could be both the source of pain and the reason for healing. Tomorrow was full of possibility. But tonight, under the same stars that watched over Whispering Creek, Malrich Voss closed his eyes and dreamed of redemption, one day at a time, one letter at a time, one chance at a time. The desert remembers everything. The violence, the blood, the terrible choices made in darkness, but it also remembers this, that Grace Coleman chose mercy, that Lily Coleman chose hope, that Malrich Voss chose change. And sometimes in the vast indifference of sand and sky and time, those choices matter most. The past cannot be erased, but the future can be written differently. Grace understood that now. As she sat on her porch with Lily beside her and the sunset painting the world in gold, she understood that survival was not enough. Living meant choosing love over hate, forgiveness over vengeance, tomorrow over yesterday. She had chosen. And in choosing, she had won something more valuable than revenge. She had won her life back, and that in the end was the only victory that mattered. The desert wind blew, the stars emerged, and in Whispering Creek, Grace Coleman finally truly came home. 15 years later, Lily Coleman stood outside Yuma Territorial Prison with her mother. She was 25 now, a teacher at Whispering Creek School, engaged to the blacksmith's son. Today, Malrich Voss walked free. He emerged into sunlight blinking, older, weathered. But his eyes were clear. He saw them waiting and stopped, uncertain. Lily stepped forward, extended her hand. Hello, Father. Welcome home. Malrich took her hand. Tears streamed down his face. I don't deserve this. No, Grace said, stepping beside Lily. But you earned it, one day at a time, one letter at a time, one choice at a time. They walked together into the Arizona sun. The past could not be erased, but the future hard-won and precious stretched ahead. And for the first time in 30 years, Grace Coleman felt something she had thought lost forever, hope. Nathan Reeves stood beside them, hat in hand, older now, but still wearing the sheriff's star. When Grace had finally told him the full truth years ago that she was his sister-in-law, that Lily was James's daughter in every way that mattered, Nathan had wept. Not from anger. From relief that his brother had found love before the end. Uncle Nathan's coming to the wedding, Lily said, linking her arm through Grace's as they walked toward town. He insisted on giving me away. Grace smiled. Your father James would have liked that. And Malrich? Lily asked quietly, glancing back at the man walking behind them, still uncertain in his freedom. Does it hurt him? Knowing he can't walk me down the aisle. No, baby. He understands his place. He wrote me last month. Said all he wants is your happiness. That watching you become the woman you are is gift enough. Edith Thornton emerged from the prison administrative office, completing the final release paperwork. She had visited Malrich monthly for 15 years, bringing news of Whispering Creek, bringing books, bringing forgiveness he still didn't think he deserved. She caught up to them now, her face softened by time, but her eyes still sharp. Welcome home, Mal, she said simply. Malrich looked at her, at the woman who had every right to hate him but chose otherwise. Thank you, Edith, for everything. Don't thank me. Thank that girl. Edith nodded toward Lily. She's the one who gave you a reason to survive. The five of them walked together toward the waiting wagon, toward Whispering Creek, toward home, toward a future built from impossible choices and hard-won grace. Grace looked at the people beside her. Nathan, who had forgiven her for secrets kept and become the uncle Lily needed. Lily, who had chosen love over bitterness, hope over hate. Malrich, who had chosen change over comfort day after brutal day. Edith, who had chosen compassion over rage when rage would have been easier. And she understood redemption was never a single moment. It was built day by day, choice by choice, letter by letter, visit by visit. The past could not be erased. The scars remained. The memories lingered. But the future, that belonged to them. Hard-won, precious, real. Grace climbed into the wagon. Lily sat beside her. Malrich rode him back with Edith. Nathan mounted his horse to ride alongside. As they pulled away from Yuma prison, Grace looked back once. At the walls that had held Malrich for 20 years. At the place where he had paid for his sins and learned slowly what it meant to be better. Then she turned forward, toward the horizon, toward tomorrow. The desert wind blew. The stars would emerge soon. And in Whispering Creek, a town that had learned to forgive, they would all finally truly come home. Together.